Hi, students. I'd like to take you on a little trip up to San Francisco. Okay, so hang on there just a second. Let me get us going. Okay, should be loading. Hang in here. Here it comes. All right. Many of you have been to San Francisco before, I'm sure, and you know a lot about it, but I want to just hit on some of the geography points about it. So San Francisco is a peninsula, a very small area surrounded on three sides by water, and oftentimes it gets fog that rolls in, and sometimes it can be very cold in the month of July and really quite nice and warm in January. You just never know, so you got to wear layers. One good thing about the fog is it brings all that beautiful moisture into these trees, and they're always green. San Francisco is known for icons, and a city wants to be known for its icons. Sorry. The Golden Gate Bridge is probably its #1 icon, of course. It is stretching across this span of water called the Golden Gate, and it is painted. Well, actually, the paint's kind of interesting. It was painted when it was first built. They put on primer. You know how you put primer on something before you want to paint it so it makes the paint last longer and adhere better and so on. Well, the primer was this beautiful orange color, and the city just went nuts over it and said that's what they want it to be. So I don't even know what the original color was supposed to be, but it went from primer orange to international orange. Right? And it's a suspension bridge that spans across, and it can sway up to 27 feet. And that's a huge area of sway. But remember, this is a very windy area and also a very earthquake prone area. So it needs to be able to move around. Anchor Steam Brewing is one of the oldest brewing companies in the United States, and it is right here out of San Francisco. So what happened is, if you notice carefully, these labels are all upside down. And what happened was, back in 1989, they had a big earthquake, a major earthquake. And it happened right when the World Series was going to start, like 1 minute before the game was going to start. And it caused a lot of damage. It shook your TV screen and then went blank. But it caused a lot of damage, a lot of deaths, and a lot of damage to the city. So Anchor Steam wanted to pay tribute to the people who lost their lives and lost so much of their livelihoods by putting all the labels the rest of the year would be put on upside down. All of that story just to tell you it's an earthquake prone area. All right, so it's a small area, so we have to build up. We have to have a lot of high rises in the area, and we also have to build out. Building out in this area is called man-made land or reclaimed land. And what it is by pouring rocks and boulders and concrete and asphalt and anything you could get, pressing it down and creating land or extension of land. Now, it serves a good purpose, but once you do have an earthquake that happens in this area, it's going to shake and shimmy like quicksand, really. It's called liquefaction, and it is because there's no bedrock underneath it. So it's not suitable for housing or schools or that kind of thing. But the reason they have to build out is because of this. It is so highly densely populated in this area that they need more land. A city also wants to be known for its skyline. We talked about that in Vancouver or Seattle. Those cities are known for their skylines. Well, the same it's true here. Like, you don't see the Golden Gate Bridge here, but you probably know this is San Francisco. And it's probably because of this building right here. Very unique. I think it's called the Trans-American Building or Pan-American Building, something like that. Anyways, but typically people call it the Pyramid Building. And it gives a very unique skyline. This is Grace Cathedral, and it's right in the heart of downtown San Francisco. And it is welcome to all religions. And so with that, you're going to have a lot of languages spoken here. So they want to welcome you here with all these different languages. Once you're inside Grace Cathedral, an interesting thing is the mural that's painted there on the wall. And This is a very unique logo. You might recognize it. It's the logo of the United Nations. And that's because the United Nations started right here in San Francisco. On the outside of the doors that lead into the cathedral, they're probably, I don't have any idea, maybe 12 feet tall. They're huge. And each door has several panels, and each panel is set in about 3 to 4 inches. And it's like some beautiful metal, copper or bronze or something, and it's sculpted into these beautiful stories. Each panel tells a different story from the Bible. In cities, we are constantly building new buildings, right? And you're right next to the old buildings. It's just very common. In San Francisco, it's not just the old and the new, but it's the old and the new and the ethnic, because there are a lot of different ethnic communities in San Francisco. Also in the downtown areas, cities want to develop ways of bringing you back to the downtown after hours. So typically a downtown area, back in the old days anyways, was maybe open from 8 or 9 in the morning to 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And when people left, they left until the next day. But what downtown areas have done as creating restaurants and museums and bars and different places like that that have people come back, that welcome them back. So this is the museum up here. Also beautiful landscaping with waterfalls and greenbelt areas. That's all just very inviting for after hours to come back to the downtown area. Ethnic communities, there's a big Chinatown in this area. If you haven't been to Chinatown in San Francisco, you really need to do that. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's always a lot of activity going on, whether it's celebrations or ceremonies. It's colorful, even the knickknacks in these little stores are colorful. Even the alleys are colorful. Now, I would never tell you to go to a big city and walk the alleys. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it myself. But you got to peek your head down the painted alleys, because the backs of these buildings are painted pinks and reds and blues and lavenders and yellows. And then they hang prayer flags, which even make it more colorful. Some of the mom and pop shops in the downtown area are like this one. This is, they're making fortune cookies. Can you see the little griddles that she has here? She's taken the dough and she's made kind of a pancake out of it. Then she'll put that in her hand and put in, of course, your lucky fortune right there. And then fold it and fold it again and put it in that cooling rack. What happened was this guy was right in front of me, excuse me, was right in front of me, and he was going to propose that very night. And so he had the ring put into a fortune cookie, and he carried it around with him for a while, and then he realized he broke it, not the ring, but the fortune cookie. So he had to come back and do it again. You can tell he's not very happy about it. Here's another guy who's been around forever down here. He cooks up different kinds of sandwiches and soups and seafood and so on, but that hat, he's known for his hat, and he's probably been around for decades. Another area to go to is Haight-Ashbury. Almost anything goes on in Haight-Ashbury. Colorful, it's kind of wild, kind of feels a little dangerous at times, but it's always something going on for sure. This is the very corner of Haight and Ashbury. You can see the street signs up here. And so when Ben and Jerry wanted to put in their ice cream parlor, the people in the community said, yeah, that's fine. Ben and Jerry are about the right age for this. They're cool. They love the environment. They have a good business, and ice cream makes everybody happy. So of course we want them here. And then right across the street on the other corner, the Gap wanted to go in. And people in the community said, no way, the Gap is too corporate. It doesn't fit with Haight-Ashbury. Well, guess who won? The Gap is there. These Victorian homes, throughout the city, you'll see these beautiful old Victorian homes that were built back in the 1880s. Okay, so well over 100 years old. And they're tall, like 3 or 4 stories. They're thin and they're long. So just a very unique style with a lot of detail on them. So these homes could really tell you the history of San Francisco and maybe the history of the United States. They have been through it. They've seen it. They have withstood World War I, and the Great Depression and World War II. And then the 60s, a lot of musicians, a lot of hippies and so on moved into the area, and they would live in these homes as communes. So there'd be a lot of people living together, and the houses went into disrepair and a lot of decay, and they kind of fell apart and all of that. So what happened in the 1980s is people had more money and they saw the potential in these beautiful homes. They just needed to be fixed up and painted and all of that. So they bought them and refurbished them and made them beautiful again. And then of course, if you lived there before and rented, you couldn't afford to live there now because it's all been redone. But they are beautiful throughout the city, and a city loves to have that done because it makes the price of their homes go up. These are the Painted Ladies. And they're a series of Victorian homes. You probably know them from a TV show. I think it was Full House. Behind there, you got the city skyline. And so you can tell where you are. And I'm up on a hill. I saw a postcard like this and thought, oh, I want to take my own picture like that. Well, I wasn't alone. There were probably a dozen of us up here trying to get the same picture. Now, if you bought one of these homes, they're registered through the Historical Society. So if you happen to want to change colors for some reason, you'd have to get them to approve it first. Let's go to the Latino section of town. This is the Mission District, and it is known for vibrant, colorful murals. This is a school, an elementary school in the area, and you can see the children painted. And look how tall this painting is, because here are the front doors of the school right here. So it's huge in scale. And look what they're doing with their hands. They're doing sign language. And around the whole building is this border. And of this border, each area in the border stands for a different letter of the alphabet. This one is an O for ocean. This one is a P for piñata. This one is an R for rose. And then the one on the right is the double R blend. So you put your hand in the position of the R and then go back and forth with it. And that makes the double R blend. This is the back of the school. Now, the back of most schools usually doesn't look very good. This one looks awesome. It's clean. People just love a good mural, and they like to take care of it. And there are also murals in the other parts of town as well. This one happens to be on an alley. There are two alleys in the downtown area called Lucky Alley and Balmy Alley. They were named after racehorses. So back during Prohibition, there was a race track for racing horses and gambling and all kinds of things. And that's been long gone, but the names of the alleys are still there. And so anytime you travel anywhere and you see some interesting names on street names or alley names or whatever, ask the local what it means. Like if you're in Anaheim and you're on Katella, that stands for Kate and Ella, which were the daughters of the mayor. If you're in Fullerton, I've heard the story that there was a doctor who lived in this area as the city was becoming a city, and it was Dr. Fuller. And it was, if you need to go see the doctor, go to Dr. Fuller's town, and Fuller's town became Fullerton. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but makes a great story. This is just to show you scale of these murals. Okay, look, there's a window, and then the face is about 8 times that big. Imagine painting a face that's 8 times the size of a window. There's a Japanese section of town down in Golden Gate Park. Beautiful architecture, lots of red and gold, and the tipped up rooftops and little dragons on the top. Just a beautiful area of the park. So make sure you stop there. If you're gonna go, you might as well go to Alcatraz. It's a fascinating place to go. It's an island out in the bay, and it was a prison. Okay, so spend the money on the recording that you walk around with these headsets on and you listen to the voices and the noises, and they tell you to look certain places, and it makes it awesome. Okay, it's a little bit scary, like a haunted place. That's what it feels like. And they do tours at night. That would be too much. All right, so back out on the streets. This is part of the informal economy. When you are selling stuff out on the street, you're part of the informal economy. versus the formal economy. That'd be working in a bank or financial center or department store or something like that. Okay, you can get your fortune told out here. Bands come and play their music. These guys are from South America selling their CDs and performing. You've probably seen guys like this before, right? I don't know if you've seen somebody this brutally honest, right? These girls were up from Orange County. They wanted to sell enough necklaces and bracelets to make enough money so they could stay the whole summer. I don't know if they made it or not. Going inland from San Francisco, we're in the Delta region. Now, in the other PowerPoint, I talk more about the Delta region, but what it is, it's a series of islands in this area where the confluence of two rivers come together. It's the Sacramento River and the San Joaquin River, both coming from the Great Central Valley and meeting in the Delta region and then flowing towards San Francisco Bay and then out to the Pacific. But this area, it looks like it's flooded, but that's just typically what it looks like from above. It's a bunch of islands with different houses and stuff. And all these islands are great for agriculture because you're surrounded by fresh water. So it's picturesque, it's a beautiful area in parts. There are people though that it's a huge range in economics. Some people don't make enough or much money. And so they live maybe on small shanty boats or shanty houses. And they work hard in the agricultural fields. Some people have a lot more money and have big fancy boats and $1 million homes in this area. So it's a wide range. This is what the islands look like, okay? They're filled with agriculture down in this region, farmhouses and stuff. And then these are earthen levees right here. And then the water is out here further. And you can drive through this area. It's just really beautiful, okay? Again, beautiful agriculture out here, surrounded by water. All right, let's get back out on the coast of the Central Coast. And it is, remember, it's the #1 place that most people need to visit out of that Time Magazine survey that we did, remember? The #1 place was the Central Coast on Highway 1. This is Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park. It's right on the coast. It's rugged. It's easy to park and to walk to the vista to take a look at this waterfall. This waterfall is interesting because it's freshwater waterfall. And when the tide comes in, it's flowing right into salt water. So it's kind of unique. That doesn't happen many places. There are lighthouses along our coast, especially up in Northern California or Central Coast. This is Pigeon Point, I think it's called. Pigeon something. Pigeon Point makes sense. And there's a hostel over here, and you can stay the night if you want while you're traveling. Sand dunes. I love sand dunes. If you were standing here, you'd be about this tall. They're huge. Let's go across the state over to the Eastern Sierra. Remember, the Western Sierra is going to be the greener side. It's the windward side. The eastern side is going to be the browner side, the leeward side, the rain shadow side. However, it's still got pockets of beautiful greenery, okay? And lots of lakes for fishing and great camping and hiking. It's beautiful on both sides. This is going up Highway 395 on the Eastern Sierra all the way up to Mammoth. And we're on Mammoth Mountain looking over at what's called the Long Valley Caldera. And do you remember what a caldera is, right? From Crater Lake, right? Mount Mazama blew up, it collapsed in on itself and became Crater Lake. This one has blown up and collapsed in on itself. It's not a lake, but it's a caldera. And if you look closely, there are houses down here. So people are living on a caldera. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. There's some other places when you're up in this area that you need to look at. Like this looks like it's all dying from, it's just hot and dry and dying. Well, there are pockets of carbon dioxide. So they put signs up like this so you pay attention to it and be careful. This is about a mile walk down beautiful forested area into what is called Devil's Postpile. And what this is, it's an old volcanic lava flow of basalt. And basalt, as it cools into this wild looking formation. And maybe you've seen pictures of this in other places. Ireland has some of this. Panama Canal had to dig through some of this. So it's in different places, but it's an old flow of basalt. And as it cools, it forms these columns. And here's a close-up. They're very picturesque. They're very unusual. And this is walking on top of it. And so you see the formation from the top view. It's really a neat place. Devil's Postpile. You don't want to miss it. Up in this area, you also get thermal activity. So these are very, very hot pools here. You wouldn't want to go anywhere near those. But there are some places that they'll let you even go into. Now this would be snow melt. So the water would be icy cold. But because of the thermal activity, if you go out right here where these people are, it's very warm. Now we're back over to the coast and we're in Monterey. And Monterey has an area called Cannery Row. And they were old canneries. They used to can fish and different things. And they hired a lot of people and that kind of thing. And they're very well known because of John Steinbeck. He is a great American author. He wrote Travels with Charlie, as some of you read that book. But he also wrote a book called Cannery Row and a book called Sweet Thursday, for that matter. He's also done Of Mice and Men and East of Eden and just a lot of books. A great American author. And they love to pay tribute to him. Back on the coast, lots of beautiful wildlife, fun to see, along with the marine terraces up here, the Bixby Bridge over here. Lots of places you'll see sea stacks. You might see an arch out here. This is my favorite place along the coast. That's called Point Lobos. It's my very favorite place. It's rugged, it's windy. The rock has been lifted and tilted a little bit. And then where there are pockets of just enough soil for trees or bushes to grow, they look like they're growing right out of rock. Now, a friend of mine, who's another geography professor, his favorite place is Montagna del Oro. And it's beautiful, a lot to look at, a lot to do, a lot of erosional features right here that make it interesting, but it's no Point Lobos. Here's my favorite. Got to stop there, okay? All right, back to San Francisco, and we are seeing trolley cars. Trolley cars, another icon of cities, especially this city. What they do from time to time is have rodeos where they let the driver compete with other drivers. And also they have to be tested for their musicality. So they have to come up with songs to do with their bells. One of the times we were up here in San Francisco, I was just telling my husband not to come in right now because he's going to bring the dog and my dog goes crazy. So I said, 1 minute. Anyways. All right. So this group of guys came up with the idea and they made up their own signs. It says, get your photo taken with the freaks, their words, with the freaks for $2. They had bank rolls of money. We saw them later at Subway getting a sandwich, and they just had wads of money. They were making a fortune out there. All right, this picture is to remind us of where we are. San Francisco started as a port city, much like those small ports we saw in Alaska. But as it's grown, as people came in boats and they needed supplies and food and places to stay, it grew, and it has grown and grown into what we call a primate city. A city that's got more significance than the whole state. People around the world have heard of San Francisco. And I'm going to leave you with this. I had the chance to fly an airplane up here, and so of course I flew out over the bridge. Just a beautiful view and a nice way to end our trip in California. All right, I'll see you later.